Society operates on a very standard equation for wealth. You put in years of hard physical work, you acquire a high-level formal education, and if you get a lucky break along the way, you achieve success. But history is full of anomalies that shatter this formula. In the early 1900s, a man named Edwin C. Barnes hopped off a freight train in New Jersey. He looked like a tramp, possessed zero capital, and had no formal education to speak of. Yet he walked directly into the laboratory of Thomas Edison and announced he had arrived to become the great inventor's business partner. A few years later, Henry Ford found himself in a Chicago courtroom, publicly mocked by opposing lawyers as an ignorant man with barely a sixth-grade education. Yet this supposedly uneducated man was busy constructing the most dominant industrial empire on the planet. Around the same time, a young boy was born completely without the physical equipment to hear. Doctors diagnosed him as a deaf-mute for life. As he grew, however, he somehow neurologically willed his brain to bridge the gap of silence, learning to perceive sound without natural ears. Look at these three cases. None of them had capital, none had elite academic pedigrees, one lacked basic biological advantages. So if they couldn't rely on money, education, or biology, what invisible leverage were they actually using to force reality to bend to their will? After 25 years spent analyzing over 500 of America's wealthiest self-made individuals, Napoleon Hill reached a specific conclusion. Great fortunes germinate in a programmable mental chemistry that translates thoughts into their material equivalent. Wishing for money is a common biological impulse, and it accomplishes absolutely nothing. The brain ignores passive wishes. It only acts on a burning desire, a psychological state where you engineer your environment so that failure is literally not an option. You see this exact state of mind in the immediate aftermath of the Great Chicago Fire. Most merchants looked at the smoking ashes of their stores and decided to retreat to easier rockets. Marshall Field stood in those exact same ruins, pointed to the ground, and vowed to build the world's greatest retail store right there, no matter how many times it burned down. To force an abstract desire into reality, Hill identified a strict 6-step process. You have to write down the exact dollar amount you intend to acquire, establish a non-negotiable deadline, and map out a concrete plan of action, stepping into execution whether you feel ready or not. This structured blueprint acts as the essential first bridge. It translates an intangible thought impulse into a set of precise physical instructions. Intense desire is frequently dismissed as motivational jargon, but within this framework, it is the required neurological fuel. Without that heat, the brain simply will not activate the mechanics of transmutation. A burning desire only generates results when it influences the subconscious, the seat of all action. Hill identified the mechanism for this internal handover as autosuggestion, which feeds the subconscious a specific blueprint until it begins to mirror it in the physical world. To see how literal this translation process is, look at Charles M. Schwab. In December of 1900, he attended a high society dinner at the University Club in New York. During a 90-minute speech, Schwab outlined a massively efficient billion-dollar steel monopoly. This organization did not exist anywhere except in his own imagination, but he presented the blueprint mixed with absolute, unwavering emotional faith. He effectively used the power of his conviction to transfer this mental hallucination directly into the mind of the most powerful financier in the room, J.P. Morgan. Morgan listened, absorbed the vision, and agreed to fund it. The physical result of that psychological transfer was the United States Steel Corporation. Schwab's intangible idea, backed by intense faith, manifested a billion-dollar reality out of a single dinner speech. Charles Schwab used autosuggestion as a mechanical tool to speak a corporate empire into existence, demonstrating how specific thought habits manifest as massive financial results. The common idea that knowledge is power overlooks a crucial detail. Information is only potential power. It only generates wealth when organized through a mastermind group. Henry Ford proved this during his libel trial. When lawyers peppered him with historical trivia to expose his lack of schooling, Ford pointed out he had a row of buttons on his desk. He could summon experts to answer any technical question on demand. An educated person isn't a human encyclopedia. They are an architect who builds a network to execute specialized knowledge. Once you organize your knowledge and launch your plan, the mind, he caught gold fever, staked a claim, and expended immense physical effort drilling deep into the earth. Eventually, the vein of gold disappeared. Desperate, he shut down the machinery and quit in frustration. He sold his equipment for a few $100s to a junkman. But this junkman did something Darby skipped. He hired a mining engineer to check the fault lines. The engineer calculated that the vein picked up again exactly 3 feet from where Darby had stopped drilling. The junkman pulled millions from that exact spot. Defeat is a psychological phantom designed to test your persistence. The individuals who accumulate immense wealth understand success is usually waiting exactly 1 step past a point where the mind screams at you to surrender. When you align these elements, desire, autosuggestion, specialized knowledge, and persistence, you are no longer relying on luck. You are operating a literal mechanical process of transmutation. But there is a harsh, neutral truth to this mechanism. The universe does not discriminate. If your subconscious blueprint is built on anxiety, doubt, and fear, the machine will construct poverty, misery, and failure with the exact same efficiency it uses to build riches. Hill's research confirms William Ernest Henley's poem, "I am the master of my fate," as a literal description of human neurology. Your external context does not matter to the subconscious mind. Severe biological limits, massive economic depressions, and streaks of bad luck are completely immaterial to the transmutation process. The only true boundary between an individual and immense wealth is internal. It is your refusal to definitively decide what you want, and your failure to aggressively demand it of your own mind.